Hello, welcome to Blue Lizard Farm. A business plan is absolutely essential. It's important to work out all of the financial end before you spend the money. And then you have to have a business plan in order to get a farm loan, whether it's from an agricultural bank. If you get rejected from them, then you can go to the FSA. But if you don't have a good plan, nobody's going to want to lend you money. So part of your business plan is that you need to find out if what you're planning to grow pencils out and makes money. All of us are passionate about our growing and what we're doing, but in the end, we've got to be able to pay the bills and pay ourselves something.
We're going to go see Carol Bishop, who is an extension agent, and she specializes in farm finances.
Hi, I'm Carol Bishop. I am the extension educator for Northeast Clark County. That is in the part of Clark County that is not Vegas. I'm located in the Moapa Valley in beautiful downtown Logandale. And my expertise and training is in agricultural economics. I can't grow anything, I can't raise anything, but if you're growing or raising something, I can come in and suck the numbers out of your head, get them down on paper, and see if you can continue to operate at least a break even, hopefully a profit. Because I have a vested interest in farmers and ranchers doing well because, as you can see, I like to eat.
If a couple came into you and wanted to start a small farm, how would you just start the discussion with that?
The first thing that I would probably ask them is why. Because farming is a very difficult industry. It mostly, for the most part, a lot of farmers are working a job to support their farm. So that would be the first question is why. The second questions I would ask them would be how much experience they have. Have they ever done this before? What kind of farming experience? Have you ever lived on a farm? Have you ever worked on a farm? Because it is a very demanding, different lifestyle. The next thing I would probably do is I have a little checklist that I use that was developed by some folks in Utah that's been very helpful to me. The first thing is, do you have the physical ability to own and run a farm? Because it is a 24/7 job. You can't just take off for 2 days and go somewhere and leave the farm untended, because inevitably something, even if you have automatic systems, inevitably something will go terribly wrong. The other question is, beyond the physical capabilities, do they have the financial capabilities, both personal and or in a business? Do you have somewhere that you believe that you can get capital? Where would you like to locate this farm? Because location is going to make a lot of difference in your ability to succeed, both in the rules and regulations that apply to that location and in the closeness to marketing. I would ask them, who else is on your team? And what are your particular strengths and weaknesses? A lot of producers love producing. They love being in the dirt and doing the actual growing of the products, but don't like dealing with the public. So it's really hard to market and produce. You don't have time. If you're at the market, you're not at the farm. And so what are your strengths and weaknesses? Do you have somebody to do that marketing? Maybe the husband wants to do the farming and the wife wants to do the marketing, or vice versa. Who else is on your team? Do you have children and or associates that are part of your team? Who do you have for support? What are your mental capabilities to go along with this? Because like I said, it is a very difficult and can be lonely. So what kind of support do you have? That goes back to your team. And so once they need to ask themselves all those sort of basic questions, that I would ask them. And then we start getting details down on paper. What would you be interested in doing? How much or how big of a project do you want to take on? Because I would always say to somebody, start small and then expand. What do you want to do? What's your big idea? Who is your customer going to be? How are you going to get your product to your customer? How are they going to know about you? Do you want to be involved in that end of it? Or do you like people or do you not? For somebody that doesn't like dealing with people, maybe they can grow enough that they can wholesale to somebody or get somebody else to go and cooperate with them that does like doing that. If they enjoy people, then I would say you would want to diversify, even add perhaps a bit of agritourism to your farm. Because in today's economy, and the reality is that just growing one thing, you have a much lower chance of being successful. You have to be able to have multiple diversification venues. And along with that comes, well, you're growing something. What are you going to do with that stuff that's not pretty? That you can't sell at that top dollar? Because that top dollar produce or that beautiful beef is only going to be a certain percentage of everything you're doing. What are you going to do with the rest of that? So you need to consider value-added processing or multiple marketing lanes. And so getting a feel for who they are, what they're wanting to do, all of that's before you even put pencil to paper. And then we start putting pencil to paper. And that's what you want to do, because it's much easier to make a mistake on paper than to make a mistake in real life. And this sounds harsh, but some of my best successes have been after going through this process with people, telling them or having them decide that maybe farming is not for them. And I rather see that and have them invest in somebody else that can be successful at it rather than them losing out and failing. That's like I was talking before, that's the mistakes on paper. So what it is your best guess of, and we start off with what your capital expenditures are going to be. So that's your infrastructure and your equipment before you put one seed in the ground or buy one calf or do anything. It's that part, the investment summary. And then we see how much you need for capital. And then we start going on to the cost. Okay, so you're going to need to have the yearly expense, such as water, power, packaging, those marketing costs, outside labor, all of those things. We bring all those costs together. Then we look at what you're going to be growing and your assumed revenue from those crops. Also, that gets spread out, both your costs and your revenue get spread out over the year to see what months you will have money and what months you will be at a loss. And that comes in handy with the FSA, so they know when to expect to get paid back. And so that's one of the things that you're going to have. And we can do all that, and then you come up with a bottom line. And that is where you want to break even. And here's usually doesn't. So that's when you go in and you start. I love this because you're able to go in and play with those numbers. Okay, what if I reduce my packaging cost to this? Am I now breaking even or having zero, at least being able to not lose money? Okay, so if I can't cut my costs, you either have to cut costs or increase revenue. Do I increase my production? Do I increase my what I'm charging for that product? What can I do? Or I'm adding another product to it. Instead of just being the produce, maybe I add that value-added product or something, or I sell that to myself, because that's going to be a different enterprise. So maybe my produce enterprise isn't making money, but my value-added product enterprise can. And that can substitute for that sort of thing. So you're making mistakes and playing with it on paper. As an example of that, I did a small farm budget where it was 2 acres, and the gentleman we did it by row foot. When enterprise budgets are very common, every university throughout the nation, it's a land-grant university, every state has enterprise budgets. For most cases, they previously were all, 500 acres of soybeans. But now, as we've progressed, they've become smaller. So instead of looking at by the acre costs and returns, we can look by the square foot or the row. And he had a year-round business, and he had a CSA, which is Community Supported Agriculture. People would pay him for a basket every week, prepaid, and that way he was sure of his income, and that's one way to do that. And for that prepayment, they would get a basket with certain items. Well, he had about 6 different things that he grew for his fall basket. Spring, of course, he made big money. So we looked at each season. We did a different enterprise budget for each season that he did. Fall, spring, and summer, in his case, because it was up in northern Nevada. And when we looked at his fall basket was losing money, and the crops. And one of the crops that he grew was garlic. And garlic was incredible. It was making $7 a row foot. And I said, theoretically, you could plant all garlic in the fall, for the fall basket and make a crud ton of money. I mean, it was incredible the amount of profit that he could have yielded out that. But that comes back to that initial question that I ask people, why do you want to do this? And when I told him that he could make a bunch of money if he just monocultured that garlic, his response was, I'm not doing this for the profit. I'm doing this because I want to be able to provide my community with good food year-round, so I'm willing to take a little bit of a loss on my fall basket to then recoup those costs in the spring and summer.
The nice thing right now with the Home Feed Nevada program, they have a price list, which kind of, for the state, sets a commodity price for our state. And since it's a tiered payment based on the farm's gross sales, that should be your base price from here on out. So if your base price for beets is $2.38, then you shouldn't sell beets for anything less than that, right? Across the state. Now you have hard numbers that you can sit down and say, I'm going to grow this much beets and I expect this many pounds. So I'm expecting 1,000 pounds of beets and it's at $2.38 a pound. So I'm going to make this much in gross sales. And you can do that right down the line of all the crops you want to grow. And you can come up with a viable, which we didn't have, a viable business plan that's going to reflect the real potential of your farm. So one of the other things that have changed over time, where we've gotten more support from the USDA, is that there is now insurance available which guarantees gross income. So let's say your farm makes $100,000 a year and you have a bad year and you lose plastic on 5 of your hoop houses and it's very expensive to get it back and it's going to take time and maybe the market crashed in some area or maybe a storm came and flooded out your farm or whatever. So these insurance policies that are subsidized by the USDA, you can purchase. So if your average sales are $100,000 and let's say you lose all $100,000 that year, you don't have any income, this insurance kicks in and it pays 85% of your gross sales or your gross losses. So that's a whole nother thing that we haven't had except for the last 2 or 3 years that help protect these small micro farms. This also is a great thing for, the psychological aspect, right? You don't have, it's not a catastrophic loss. It's only a 15% loss. And so that's a really important program now that the USDA is offering. You have to go through an insurance company, but they're subsidized by the federal government, and there are fees that you have to pay, just like any insurance. But it's affordable. What's a realistic timeline for a new farmer to begin to see a break even or even a profit?
Okay, when I talk about a break even, what I'm talking about, although I have a line for farmer time in that I zero out that line and I just put in the amount of hours, and if there's anything left at the end, after, of course, self-employment taxes, then I take, say, you've put in all your revenue, you've taken out all your costs, you've taken out the amount for self-employment tax, because even if you don't have income tax, you are always going to have self-employment tax on every dollar of profit. And you say you have $1,000 left over. Well, however much, and you've invested probably 3,000 hours of time. So you're working for, 3 cents an hour. So it doesn't include you paying yourself. We want to at least make sure, though, that you can cover your costs. I don't know what would be considered reasonable, but I do know this from my experience. I was on the National Farm Extension Tax Advisory Board. And the word on the street is that IRS, the first 3 to 5 years, they don't expect a whole lot from a new farmer. If after 5 years, however, you are not showing a profit, they then at that point, it is rumored, will come and look at you and see if you're really a hobby farm instead of a farmer, because it's how much time are you investing into the business. So most, and I have said by a rule of thumb, when I can do those costs and I can take that information from somebody that's already up and going and viable and divide their profit at the end of that by their hours, and it's $13 an hour, I'm happy. Because that is the going, rate of farmer pay. Is you're paying yourself about $13 an hour if you're successful, which is horrid, but reality.
It's less than my employees.
Yes, I'm sure you don't give yourself too many bonuses. If you're farming, you have to do it because you love it. You do it for the lifestyle. Everybody I've talked to always says that. You do it for the lifestyle. You don't do it for the money. And that's why it's my passion to try to support farmers, because without them,
You go hungry.
that's more than hungry. It's a way of life that I don't want to see go away. I don't want all my food coming from mega producers. I want somebody that I can taste the love. When somebody cooks a meal for you, you can taste the love just the way you can taste the love in produce and meat that has been raised by somebody that is invested in what they're doing. And that's what I want for as many people as possible.
Thank you for sharing your passion.
If you like the content here, please subscribe. If you have questions, comment down below.